Derby County have received some big positive injury news as they head into a massive fixture against relegation rivals Hull City at the MKM Stadium this weekend. With Kemar Roofe and Cory Blacket Taylor all ready and available to be selected, will either of them be in the squad or even the starting 11 heading into the game at the weekend? Now, there's some massive talking points which I want to talk about in this video along the lines of Kemar Roofe and Cory Blacket Taylor, as well as some news on Callum Elder. Now, obviously for Derby County, this season's injuries have been a huge problem, and one of the reasons, in my opinion, why we're down there near the bottom of the division. Now, obviously, you've also got the Paul Warne effect and things like that, but obviously these injuries have been a problem, and right now we're sitting on quite a few of them. Now, John Eustace was keen to point out in the press just 2 days ago, well, a day ago as you're watching this actually, that he is back available for selection. Kemar Roofe is back available for selection. And why it hasn't gone to plan with him having an impact on the pitch, he's been unbelievable off the pitch for the players in helping them get ready for games and making sure that their mindset is right heading into some massive fixtures. Now, obviously for Kemar Roofe, we all hoped that he'd have that sort of Dwight Gale effect where he'd come in, score a couple of goals, be massive for us to secure survival, and ultimately then move on to pastures new at the end of the season. And there's still an opportunity for Kemar Roofe to do that with 2 more games left of the season. Now, in my personal opinion, I think he'll probably only play half an hour in the next 2 games, if I'm completely honest. And it'll be very interesting to see if he does actually score a goal or have any impact. Now, for me, Kemar Roofe, the signing was a smart one. We needed a body up front because of the injuries we had, and he was available, and we know the qualities that he does possess. Obviously, the injury that he picked up obviously isn't a great one, and it's one of those where we've just been really unlucky this season. And obviously, in my opinion, with Kemar Roofe, it falls into that lack of football through the first half of the season. Now, Cory Blacket Taylor, as we know, has been back in training for the last couple of weeks. He's been with the squad for this week, trained a couple of days with John Eustace and the rest of the boys, and obviously looks ready to be involved and could be available for selection at the weekend. Now, John Eustace made it clear that he was looking forward to working with Cory Blacket Taylor next season, and was keen to point out that it was quite a big muscle injury that he suffered, and he didn't want to sort of rush it or even force him to play at this stage of the season, when ultimately if he breaks down again he might not be available at the start of next year. Now, for me, in my personal opinion, when it comes to both Kemar Roofe and Cory Blacket Taylor, I believe Cory Blacket Taylor won't play a single minute. He may end up on a bench for one of the last 2 games, but ultimately I don't believe he's going to play over the course of the final 2 games. I think the intention for Derby County will be to protect Cory Blacket Taylor and make sure that, whether it be League One or the Championship next season, make sure that he's available to play. And obviously that is the most important thing, in my opinion, is making sure Cory Blacket Taylor is going to have a part to play for Derby before his contract ends. We spent £300,000 on him, and in my opinion, could have been money well spent, but obviously he's had those injury problems since he essentially joined. Now, on Kemar Roofe, as I mentioned, I think he'll only play half an hour at most before the season ends. Now, I thought the Kemar Roofe sign at the time was a smart one, but we always knew the caveats of the injuries, and not playing for essentially 9 months was always going to have an impact, and obviously that is what has happened, and it's what has come to play for Derby County. Now, do I think he'll actually make a start? No. Obviously, half an hour would dictate at least a substitute appearance, and ultimately I think that'll only happen if Derby County either secure their survival this weekend, or, well, I say secure survival, if we win and Luton lose, Derby County are 3 points clear with a tremendous goal difference. So that would, in my opinion, barring what it would have to be, a 10-15 goal swing, Derby County would stay in the division. I can't see Kemar Roofe playing or making a start. Now, obviously, on to Callum Elder, a player who's been out since, was it the Preston North End game at home, where he took a massive blow to the knee. There is an outside chance, according to John Eustace, that he'll be available for the final 2 games. He's still being monitored, but it's not as serious as some people are suggesting. Obviously, there was a tweet doing the rounds on Twitter over the course of the last 24 hours since the supporters group meeting, where essentially someone claimed they spoke to Callum Elder about his injury. There is a picture of them with Callum Elder where Callum Elder said he had a double leg break. Now, that question was put to John Eustace by BBC Radio Derby, in which John Eustace was keen to point out that he hasn't broke his leg, and that he is potentially available for the next 2 games. It's just a case of monitoring and doing the right thing for the player. And obviously, if that's what Radio Derby are hearing, that's what the player has apparently told somebody at the awards night, then ultimately, can you go against the manager? Not really, but can you go against the player? Again, not really. It's sort of a difficult one to come up against. Now, I ultimately don't think we're going to see Callum Elder till next season. Don't even think he's going to be on the bench, and it wouldn't surprise me if on the final day, given that Derby County stay in the division and do their lap of honour, I think Callum Elder may potentially be on crutches or an embrace or something like that. But we'll have to wait and see for that one. Now, obviously, Jeff Hendrick has been a bone of contention over the course of the last couple of days. Obviously, we've not been involved versus West Brom and also not been involved versus Luton Town. The question was put forward to John Eustace, in which John Eustace made it clear that Jeff Hendrick has suffered a little bit of a calf injury. He will be missing this weekend, as he has done for the previous 2 games, but is expected back for the final game of the season up against Stoke City. Now, John Eustace was keen to point out the importance of Jeff Hendrick with the squad. Although he's not playing, he's had a massive impact off the pitch, and obviously that's important for these injured players, as you don't want players down in the dumps in and around the squad, especially when you're in a relegation battle, because ultimately that won't help anything for morale, it won't help confidence, and ultimately it then puts you in a little bit of a shit situation. And obviously, according to John Eustace, Jeff Hendrick has been incredible at keeping this squad together and obviously being a positive light in a negative situation. Now, obviously, we know there's a range of players already out until the end of the season, the likes of Ryan Niambi, Dejan Brown, Curtis Nelson, David Ozo, Lars-Jørgen Selverson, Joe Ward and Jakub Zetterstrom. Now, obviously, we spoke about Nathaniel Mendez-Lang before the West Brom game and the injury he picked up versus Luton Town, and I do ultimately believe that he probably is playing through injections. There was reports suggesting that he fractured his cheekbone, I think, or fractured his eye socket or something like that, which it's supposed to be the same injury as Zetterstrom, which has ruled Zetterstrom out for the season. Obviously, as a goalkeeper, probably that's the reason why for Zetterstrom. But for Nathaniel Mendez-Lang to come in and play and score at West Brom was incredible. But it will be interesting to see what does happen with that come the end of the season. I'm glad that Mendez-Lang did play and did get that goal, and obviously shut up a lot of people. Ultimately, I don't really think that the goal ultimately shuts up as many people as it should do. But I ultimately think Mendez-Lang needs to do a little bit better this season, and we've got 2 games left. If he can score 2 winning goals in the next 2 games, he can have his flowers and he can take his contract for another season. Now, obviously, when we're talking about these injuries for Derby County, it's important to point out that we aren't essentially in a good position when it comes to squad. We've got obviously a lot of people out. Obviously, we've now got Ben Osborne back, which is massive. Not that I think Osborne's going to have a massive impact on the squad over the next few games. I think it'll pretty much stick to what it is. I don't really think, in my opinion, you should change the 11 for the next 2 games, which is why I think, as much as we've had horrific injuries, I think it's also been a good thing. The injury to Ben Osborne brought in Harrison Armstrong to play in the 3 with Adams and Thompson. Kenzo being pulled out obviously brought in brought in Thompson and Armstrong. You've obviously then got the injury to Callum Elder brought Langas in. Ultimately, I think if Elder was playing, we'd probably be in a bit of a better position, because Fozzie would be in that back 5 and you wouldn't have Langas playing on that injury, which is requiring surgery. And obviously you've got the Niambi injury, which ultimately Kane Wilson had already got back into the side, but you've got that injury to Niambi, which put Kane Wilson back in his preferred position on the right-hand side and back as a starter, essentially, for Derby County. So it's going to be massive to see what does happen over the course of the next few weeks. You can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content that's heading your way across the course of the end of this season, as well as the off-season as well. There will be lots of talk about transfers, and if you are at this point of the video, let me know down in the comments by dropping a RAM. There will be a bit of an announcement coming when the season has ended in regards to raffles, where you guys can purchase tickets or earn tickets through subscribing to the channel, following me on Twitter, TikTok, things like that. where you can potentially win Derby County shirts, match day tickets and things like that, which is going to be coming for next season. So if you're at this part of the video, let me know down in the comments by dropping a ram. Let me know your thoughts on raffles and things like that down in the comments. It will be cheap, like £1 a ticket or something like that, with the intention to get as many of you involved as possible and not sort of rule anybody out of potentially being able to get involved. So obviously let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments. There will be a full video discussing that once the season is over. So yeah, that's that. So if you haven't done so already, hit subscribe, hit like, turn on the notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next one.